The American composer Oscar Wilde once said that life imitates art far more than art imitates life. And it's true. After all, they didn't have animated visual media when he lived. But nowadays, every movie and series influences our lives in one way or another. There are so many of our favorite cartoon characters, which have been based on the lives or appearances of real people. Some people like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck might be world famous, but most are uncommon, and you probably don't know much about them. All have been immortalized by the animator's felt tip. Let's find out about some of them now. Here are our top 10 cartoon characters inspired by real-life people you'd never expect. Number 10. Live-action Disney models. Disney has always been pioneers of animation, but back in the 1930s, they were breaking new ground every day. Feature-length animations had never before been done. So Disney's animators had to make sure their films would hold the audience's attention and stand the test of time. Human beings are the hardest animals to animate in a realistic way. So when Disney were making those early films like Sleeping Beauty and Peter Pan, they would use live models as inspiration. They would find actors and actresses, dress them up in costume and makeup, and get them to act out scenes from the cartoon with real props. This allowed animators to see how their characters' facial expressions would change, how their clothes would move as they danced, and all kinds of other movements that they could later draw in. Here is Margaret Carey, who was the model for Tinkerbell. This is Helene Stanley, who was the model for Princess Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. Presumably she just laid there all day. Then when they were filming Bambi, they brought 2 live fawns into the studio. Oh dear. Number 9. Aladdin. Disney took us to a whole new world in 1992 with the release of their classic Aladdin. Perhaps the reason this film was so popular, it was the most successful film of that year, is that it took inspiration from things that were popular at the time. Aladdin's face was inspired by the most popular Hollywood heartthrob at the time, Tom Cruise. Also those massive trousers he wore while he danced. Animators were inspired by mega-selling hip-hop star MC Hammer, whose voluminous pants inspired a temporary fashion craze in the early 90s. They even studied how Hammer's trousers shook and ballooned around while he danced in the videos. Finally, every film needs a star. Aladdin's directors wanted the great comedian Robin Williams to voice the genie, but Disney bosses and Williams himself were reluctant to make it happen. To convince him, they asked animator Eric Goldberg to draw the genie with Williams' facial features. Williams immediately realized it was the role he was born to play, and the rest is history. Number 8. Ursula. Disney's 1989 classic, The Little Mermaid, is credited with restoring Disney's fortunes after a run of indifferent films in the 80s, with its heartwarming story and singing fish. However, did you know that the character of Ursula, the dastardly sea witch, which was inspired by one of Hollywood's most controversial stars, divine real name Glenn Milstead, was a drag queen turned movie star, frequently starring in films by director John Waters. He shot to fame after the 1972 cult classic Pink Flamingos were in one scene. He ate some dog poo. He also starred in the classic musical Hairspray. He was instantly recognizable for his beehive wigs, Coron figure, and flamboyant, expressive voice. When The Little Mermaid's animators were working on ideas of how Ursula should look, one animator drew an overweight matron who looked a lot like Divine. Elaborating on the theme, they gave her a string of pearls and a pink mohawk hairdo. They also asked voice actor Pat Carroll, who would voice Ursula, to basically do a Divine impression. They now had the perfect sea witch. Sadly, Divine would not get to see his Disney Fry likeness. He died of an enlarged heart in 1988. Number 7. Milhouse Van Houten. Switching from cartoon characters inspired by real people to ones inspired by unreal people now. The Simpsons has been on air since 1989 and has featured appearances by real stars such as Professor Stephen Hawking and Mark Hamill. But did you know one of the most enduring characters was based on another sitcom character? Bart's best friend, Milhouse Van Houten, takes many attributes from the Wonder Years' Paul Pfeiffer. Best friend to the show's main character Kevin, it's all there: the side parting, the prominent nose, the glasses. The only difference is that Paul was academically gifted, while Milhouse certainly isn't. The similarity between the two characters could be down to both shows sharing a writer. David M. Stern, the actor who played Paul Josh Sadiano, is the subject of another widespread urban myth that he is now scary-looking rocker Marilyn Manson. This isn't true. Unfortunately, Josh is a lawyer now. Number 6. Chef Gusteau. Since Toy Story in 1995, Pixar Studios have provided Disney with critically acclaimed, crowd-pleasing computer-generated cartoons. One of these is the 2007 culinary classic Ratatouille, where Remy, a Persian rat, conquers the world of high-class cuisine. His muse is the ghost of Chef Gusteau, once the best chef in France who died of a broken heart when his third Michelin star was taken away from him after a bad review. The character of Gusteau was wholly inspired by the story of Bernard Loiseau. In the 1990s, he was the most famous chef in France, the king of Noël cuisine, with a profile similar to the A-list movie stars that ate at his restaurants. He wrote best-selling cookbooks, starting TV shows, and had his own range of frozen foods. However, behind the success lurked a troubled man suffering from manic depression. In 2003, Loiseau found out that Michelin were going to take away the third star from his restaurant. Laco de Laura, devastated, he shot himself with his hunting rifle. Number 5. Jungle Book Vultures. 1967, the height of Beatlemania, and the year Disney released their classic animation, The Jungle Book. Can you spot the connection? That's right, the Vultures, with their mop-top hairstyles and Liverpool accents. They're clearly inspired by the Fab Four. However, what you may not know is that the Beatles could have played the Vultures. Their manager, Brian Epstein, approached the Disney Studios with a proposal to get the band in the film. The directors agreed and animators came up with the concept of the Vultures, ready to be voiced by the most famous band in the world. Unfortunately, no one told the Beatles when Epstein took the idea to the band. John Lennon refused to do it, and the plan was shelved. The Vultures performed their song in the style of a barbershop quartet instead of Mercy Beats. Number 4. Snow White. I explained earlier how Disney used live-action models when animating their films. Perhaps the most famous of their live models was Mars Champion. In 1937, she was used as a live model for Disney's first feature-length animation, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. She won the role partly down to a friendship between her father and Walt Disney. In show business, it's about who you know. As a trained dancer, animators study how Marge moved to help make Snow White move in a realistic way. However, she was made to wear a football helmet a lot of the time because Snow White had a head that was too big for her body. She later modeled for the parts of the Blue Fairy in Pinocchio. And in 1940, the dancing hippo in Fantasia, she must have put a bit of weight on during those intervening years. Mars Champion later became a star of movies and TV in her own rights, and at the time of recording this video is still around age 97. Number 3. Edna Mode. Squat, sassy, and disavow of capes. One of the stars of Disney Pixar's The Incredibles is superhero costume designer Edna Mode. Edna shares many striking similarities with the costume designer of 1950s, Hollywood Edith Head. Over a long career, Edith was nominated for 35 Oscars, winning 8. She worked on the costumes for classic movies, such as Vertigo and The Sting. I'm sure she could have knocked up an amazing superhero costume if she tried. Edith had a very distinctive look. She was only 5 foot, one with severely cut hair and thick black glasses. It's the look that inspired the Pixar animators when they created Edna Mode. It wasn't just Edith's appearance that she shares with Edna, however. Their names are very similar, and let's not forget their eccentric personalities. Edith had once said, "I hate modesty, but I am the best of the best." Number 2. Andy from Toy Story. Staying with Pixar, we move to their first film, Toy Story, and the character Andy Davis. Andy is the owner of Woody, Buzz, Rex, and all the other toys, until he goes to college in the third film. According to many sources, Andy was inspired and named after Andy Van Dam. Andy Van Dam was a computer graphics genius, a professor of computer science at Brown University, who had taught many of the filmmaking team at Pixar. They wanted to pay tribute to the professor who had showed them so much, so they named their first main human character after him. Van Dam himself denies the story. Some people say Andy was named after one of the animator, sons, or Pixar studio director, Andrew Stanton. Number 1. Shrek. Everybody loves the story of Shrek, the grumpy yogurt with a heart of gold. Shrek is a pretty distinctive-looking guy. Giant, bald, misshapen ears, big fat nose, teeth like tombstones. You wouldn't think that his look could be inspired by a real person. However, you'd be wrong. The only difference between Shrek and this man, Maurice Tillett, is that Shrek is green. Maurice Tillet was born in 193 in France and was nicknamed Angel by his friends, due to his blonde hair and angelic complexion. Unfortunately, at the age of 17, Maurice was diagnosed with a rare hormonal disorder, which causes bone growth in the hands, feet, and face. Maurice joined the French Navy for a while, then put his size and looks to good use by becoming a professional wrestler. He was known as the French Angel and was twice world heavyweight champion in the American Wrestling Association. Maurice died in 1954 from cardiovascular disease. DreamWorks, the studio that made Shrek, have never commented on whether Maurice was the inspiration for Shrek. Look at these photos though. It can be coincidence, can it? That's the end of our top 10 cartoon characters inspired by real-life people that you never expect. Which one did you like the best? Can you think of any more cartoon lookalikes? Leave us a comment below to let us know. Thanks for watching.